A notice of the meeting has been posted in accordance with the Texas Open Meeting Act. The time is 6:03 p.m. We ask that all those in attendance conduct themselves respectfully at all times during this meeting. Any outbursts or disruptive behaviors may result in your removal from this evening's board meeting. The following board members are in attendance: Tracy Miller, Allison Lasan, Catherine Sells, Dr. Buddy Bonner, Christy Hassett, Jenny Prosnick. I'll go ahead and open this prayer. Father, thank you for an opportunity to serve our school district. Tonight we vote on our budget and our taxes, things that are a couple of the most important things we do outside of taking care of our staff, taking care of our students, and focusing on student outcomes. So we pray that you'll give us wisdom as we make those decisions, and that we just give you all the glory for the honor to be able to serve our community. In Jesus' name, amen. Please join us in the Pledge of Allegiance and Texas Pledge. Persons desiring to address the Board of Trustees must fill out a speaker's card. In accordance with the district policy, only speakers at cards addressing items on today's agenda will be acknowledged. No presentation shall exceed 3 minutes. The board cannot deliberate on any subject that is not included on the agenda. Each speaker will receive a written follow-up from the district in the next 3 business days. The board and district administration values the feedback shared during this time of the meeting, and we are grateful for the continued partnership between LISD, families, and communities we serve. 0, no comments. Okay. With that, we're going to open the public hearing. Is that right? All right. You're going to go for? Okay, go ahead.
We'll begin the 2022-2023 budget and tax rate adoption hearing for LISD. That is not it. It's 22-23 budget and tax rate adoption. In just a minute. There we go. Okay, so we'll open up the public hearing for the 22-23 budget and tax rate adoption. Our agenda for this evening for the public and for the Board of Trustees is to go over the budget guidelines, the budget timeline, our budget parameters, our staff information, tax rates and impact to the taxpayer, our fiscal year 23 proposed revenue and expenditures for the general fund, the child nutrition fund, and the debt service fund, look at our projected fund balance in all of those, and look at our proposed budget. So first, we'll look at our budget guidelines. According to the Education Code and our CE local policy, as Mr. Miller said previously, the school board must adopt a budget by August 31st for the following funds: the general fund, the child nutrition fund, and the debt service fund. All other special revenue funds are approved by the Texas Education Agency or the federal government and are not approved by the board. When we think about our budget timeline, this is not something that we spend a month on or even a week on. This process started back in January of 2022 with the administration beginning that budget planning. We held a board budget workshop as early as March 2022. We had a regular board meeting in April where we got out there and approved our compensation package so that we could be competitive in the market for getting the best teachers possible and best staff possible for our school district. We had another budget workshop in May of 2022. During the summer, our debt strategy committee met together and did a revised version draft for CCA local and presented that to the board in August. We had another work session for the budget in August and a budget workshop, and we came back to the board on August 8th and approved those compensation increases for the Child Nutrition Fund. So we've been planning for this budget and what we're going to do tonight since January of this school year. So our budget parameters, you can see our 21-22 numbers, and then what our projections are for the 22-23. We look at enrollment projection, but we know that our attendance is based on our ADA. We look at our net taxable value of property. We look at our two tax rates. So we have those comparisons for where we were last year and then what we're bringing in front of you tonight. In looking at staffing and compensation, our compensation plan for 22-23 includes a 4% raise for teachers in similar positions, a 3% raise for all other employees, market adjustments for technology pay grades, increased child nutrition minimum hourly rate to $14, and $1,000 temporary retention incentives for that child nutrition staff. So now we're going to move into our tax rate and the impact of said tax rates. When we look at the maintenance and operation tax and interest and sinking tax rates for 22-23, you can see that for M&O, it's at 85 cents, a little more, 0.8559, and our interest and sinking or debt service is at 0.3809 for a total tax rate of $1.2368. This is a decrease of 7 cents from the 21-22 fiscal year. When we look at the comparison on an average taxable value of a residence, you see the comparison here. You see the comparison here of what the taxable value is on the home, the taxes due on an average residence, and the increase or decrease of that tax obligation for that taxpayer. And our taxable values are determined by the Denton Central Appraisal District and the Tarrant County Appraisal District. So now we're going to move into our fiscal year 23 proposed revenue and expenditures for the general fund, the Child Nutrition Fund, and the Debt Service Fund. In the general fund, we're projecting revenue of $570,810,945. For expenses, we are projecting $587,014,387. And we will have an ESSER adjustment or an offset to reclassify some of those expenditures for a projected ending deficit of right around $9 million. When we break down our general fund revenue, we are a recapture district, so the majority of our funds are going to be in local revenue where our tax collections are at 85%. Our state revenue comes in at about $70 million. I'm going to break that down in the next slide to kind of illustrate some things that we've talked about along the way. And then we have federal revenue proposed at right around $19 million to encompass all of the general fund revenue. Over on the right, we have how that is broken down in a pie chart. This slide kind of illustrates what we've been talking about along the way. When you look at the revenue that we bring in on the state side, you see that we bring in revenue for the Foundation School Program and the Available School Fund. We do have some other state revenue that we're projecting to collect this year due to some taxable value audits based on the values, prior year values. And then our TRS on behalf payment is at $34 million, and that is just simply a holding place for the state, and we pay that right back out on the state's behalf. So those total state program revenue of $70 million, if you go over and look at some of our mandate expenses at the state level, again, that TRS payment goes right back out the door, and our recapture payment is estimated at almost about $54.4 million. So you could see that those two expenditures alone, in total state expenses exceed the revenue that we bring into the district. When we're thinking about recapture, I think that this is a really good slide. The state of Texas is estimating right now a $27.1 billion surplus for the current fiscal year. Recapture accounts for $3.2 billion of the surplus. The original intent of House Bill 3 enacted in 2019 was to reduce the recapture. And you can see that red line represents when House Bill 3 went into effect. And for that first year, we did see a benefit from that. But as you can see, over time, that has just crept up. And since 2018-19, LISD has sent back over $200 million in recapture to the state of Texas. When we look at our general fund expenditures, it's laid out there in payroll at 73% of those expenditures, contracted services at 20%. Since we do contract out our custodial and our transport or bus drivers, things like that, you're going to have, if you moved those over to the payroll costs, you would be probably over 80% there, but that's a little bit different there. And then our supplies and our 6400s, those percentages are outlined in the pie chart. Now we're going to look at our child nutrition overview. You can see that we have expenses in excess of revenue of about $9.5 million. That is illustrative of the fact that we are in a huge spend down plan from the surpluses that we have gained over COVID and the students being able to eat free and those reimbursable meals. On the right over there, we have some of the things that we are planning to do to hopefully knock some of the spending out. We are not allowed to carry that fund balance in the Child Nutrition Fund. So you can see some of the things that we're planning to do. This is a little different than what we've been seeing for the past 2 years because most of our revenue for the past 2 years has been on the federal side because of we've been on all the children have been eating free. This will be our first time since COVID to come back and bring local revenue back into the program so you can see how that is split out on the revenue side for the Child Nutrition Fund. On the expense side, you know that the child nutrition workers on the front line are LISD employees, and then we contract out the management of the program to Aramark, and that's where the bulk of the food is paid for and the management salaries and the $6,200 through that contract. You can see that we do have some supplies, some food, that would be our commodities for that. And that capital outlay expense being so large, that'll be those renovations and upgrades as a part of that spend down plan. And then last but not least, on our funds that we bring before you tonight is the debt service overview. We have revenue and expenditures there and a little bit of surplus, but we'll probably use that through a part of our defeasance plan that we're bringing forward to you this evening. With the surplus in the debt service collections, LISD is planning to defease approximately $65 million of debt service during the 22-23 school year. A little later on in the evening, we will be bringing a commitment resolution to you before we adopt the tax rate to show that in good faith we are saving the taxpayer. We plan to save the taxpayers quite a bit of money on the debt service side through our defeasance program for this year. And those defeasance are included in that bond principal and defeasement as a part of that first expenditure, and then interest and fees. So the projected $65 million defeasement would give an approximate debt service payment reduction of $71 million and an approximate net interest savings to the taxpayer of $6.2 million. Now we look at our fund balance. We last approved a fund balance resolution on June 8th, 2020. The general fund, our resolution maintains that we will assign an amount equivalent to 3 months operating expenditures as its minimum fund balance each year. And on the debt service side, assign an amount equivalent to 10% of the annual debt service payment. Again, we are not, by law, we cannot carry a fund balance on the child nutrition side. So if we look at that analysis, we kind of take you through the story of our beginning fund balance in each fund at the beginning of 21-22, our estimated net change in fund balance for this year, and then our estimated ending fund balance. And then we do the same thing for 22-23 here, putting that ESSER adjustment, of course, in the general fund, and then our proposed, and then what we require through our resolution, and where we end up as rather a surplus or a deficit. So, meeting that policy or not meeting that policy. Getting pretty close on the general fund side to that, but wanted to put that in front of the public this evening. And with that, I will turn it back over to you, Mr. Oh, no, wait, just one. I have a couple more things. I'm sorry. I have the proposed 22-23 budget, and it's listed in the one pager there. I'll draw your attention to the recapture payment in function 91, and I'll draw your attention to the ESSER 3 support that is offsetting the overall deficit of the general fund budget. Just a few highlights for this budget, the 22-23 budget. It did produce a highly competitive salary increase for all employees, and it was established early on for recruitment and retention efforts. This budget has a decrease of the tax rate by over 7 cents. We are bringing a debt management plan this evening to you that will give potential savings to the taxpayers, and those are listed there. We've talked about them. We have adjusted funding and services for increased special education enrollment, and we have over $3 million in increase for safety and security upgrades. So with that, I will turn it back over to you, Mr. Miller, to open up the public hearing.
Thank you, Ms. Maloney. As I open the public hearing, just two comments. One is, and Ms. Maloney will talk about this later, when we use the word defeasance, just think of that as payoff, unless you have any questions for the public hearing. If you hear refunding, it refinance and potentially some debt pay down and that refinance. And then we fully recognize that while it's an effective tax decrease, your taxes haven't gone down. So we want to be very clear. We're not sitting up here saying we've just lowered your taxes. We're lowering the tax rate, but because of the property values and the way the system works, they're going up. I also would make note, Ms. Taylor did arrive at 6:08 p.m. for the record. All right, with that said, the public hearing of the 2022-2023 budget and proposed tax rate is now open. If there are any persons present who would like to speak on this topic, please come forward at this time. If there are no additional comments or no comments, I declare this public hearing closed. I should have declared that at, this is 6:18 p.m. All right. Discussion items. Projected bond defeasance or payoff opportunities for 2023. Ms. Maloney.
Yes, thank you, President Miller, Dr. Rapp, and members of the board. The next three items on the discussion side that we're going to talk about tonight are really based on the fact that we are bringing forward to you in the action tonight the revised CCA local, which creates our new debt management policy. So this is new for us to do this at budget time, but we do plan for this to become a part of our August or late August budget adoption and tax rate adoption every school year. I want to thank John Martin for being here this evening. He's been instrumental in helping to put these things together and helping the committee. And he'll be able to help us answer questions on each of these items. But the first item before you is the projected bond defeasance opportunities. And again, as Mr. Miller said, this is we're setting aside the surplus funds that we're able to generate with the INS tax rate to pay off debt early. The district's financial advisor has assisted us in developing a defeasance program, and as we spoke about in the public hearing, this analysis reflects a significant reduction in the annual debt service over the next several years, with a $71 million payment savings and a $6.2 million net effective savings. We will you will have a resolution before you this evening before we adopt the tax rate, just to commit, to show the Board of Trustees' commitment to defeasance to the taxpayers for these eligible bonds that we would be able to do that for. And then in the spring of the tax year, we would, or as soon as we would possibly be able to do so, we would bring this back to you with an order to take action on this item. So I'll pause there for any questions.
Does the board have any questions? Okay. Next item, Ms. Maloney.
Yes. So the next item is the selection of underwriters for the 22-23 school year. As a part of the revised CCA local, which will be brought to you as an action item later on this evening, within that CCA local policy, it would require that the Board of Trustees approve a pool of underwriters annually at the time the debt management procedures are reviewed. So the revisions to the CCA local does include parameters for the selection of underwriters and evaluations of their performance after a transaction. And so what we were able to do is the financial advisor and bond counsel, we were able to utilize the Municipal Advisory Council of Texas to evaluate underwriting firms, assemble a ranking of their transactions across Texas, and the top 10 did meet our requirements of our debt service policy, and we believe that this methodology would allow us to bring that pool recommendation to you on September the 6th during the work session. It is doubtful that we would have a refunding opportunity in the 22-23 school year, but I hope that the rank order and the analysis of these firms would show you the importance of reviewing this on an annual basis for these firms. So pending the passage of the revised CCA local this evening, the selection of the underwriter pool for the 22-23 school year is going to be brought back for consideration at the September 6th board work session.
Any questions from the board? Ms. Prosnick?
I just want to say that I'm very pleased to see these 10 firms. In the past, we have had CFOs say that only large firms could serve this district. And I was very pleased to see that there are small firms, there are local firms, and there's a minority-owned firm on that list. So I think that the diversification of our pool will only make, when we do go out for refundings in the future, I will think that would only make them, make us more desirable, if you will, in the market.
Thank you, Ms. Prosnick. Dr. Bonner?
It's just a real quick question, and it may have been something that you're just going to have to remind me about. So we've got the 10 firms listed, and it looks like we put them in the 10 as with regard to frequency of action. Was there any other review of those firms to make sure that they had capacity but capability to handle our business?
Yes, and I can turn over to John Martin as well. We laid, after we looked at the top 10 of the most frequency, we put them on top of our policy, and did they meet our parameters? And do you want to?
Dr. Bonner, I can answer affirmatively that all these firms have very sufficient capital to be able to underwrite bonds either by themselves or with a syndicate of other firms. So they're all not only financially they also have very competent people.
John, you want to stay up there for a second? Anybody else have any questions? Mr. Martin, just for the edification of the public, when we use those firms, explain just briefly how a transaction works. As an example, remember in 2017 when we sold our first bonds after that, we had 5 firms bidding. It was like open bidding, and you're bidding that day, and we've analyzed them, we've understood their ability to collateralize the loans, right, and support them. Just give a little bit of, that there's a process yet, even though they're on the list, they're going to really have to qualify to be able to buy bonds. Then we have to approve. Will we approve that we're going to sell them to potentially 4 or 5 companies or whatever the list is, right?
Well, I think what happens with an underwriting is ultimately when we're ready to sell bonds and we have a transaction on the near horizon, then we will determine, as is stated in your policy that we work through, that you'll be looking at a little bit later on, whether you need 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, however many, depending on market conditions, depending on the type of the length of security, how big it is, those types of things, and market conditions at the time. So there's lots of variables that go into this. So you'll select a syndicate out of this. All 10 will not be participating in each issue. It's important to understand. So these are qualified. And so I think it's important that the way that you all are going about this, the really nice thing is we're going to be able to share with these firms now that you have a potential to be part of our financing team here at Lewisville ISD. Here's our debt management policy. Get familiar with it. This is what the expectations are. And once they come back, that then opens the door for them to submit ideas. We're not the only ones that have great ideas. There's a lot of firms out there that have great ideas, and they'll submit that. We'll be able to vet those, but this is really your top tier of folks that will be interested. We'll review this every year. It's a great idea, I think. But once you have going back to the question, once you have that financing on the horizon, you'll select the team, your financing team, your underwriters, and then from that, you will select a senior managing underwriter. And the senior managing underwriter is the one who is the book runner. All the orders really flow through them. And the co-managers are more, we like to call them helpers that are involved. And we want to see them. And the idea is to have these other firms in there as co-managers to create competition. So we want them pounding on, maybe turning over rocks for investors that weren't there before. Everybody knows who owns your bonds. That's not a secret. It's public record. So I think that having these firms involved, that we'll have a great opportunity for you all in the future to make sure you have a good, diverse group here to make sure the taxpayers get the best deal possible.
Good. Thank you for that. I think that's a good tutorial for us to have on record going forward over the next 4 or 5 years. Any other questions? Okay. Ms. Maloney, 2022, 2023 potential refundings.
Yes, and as we stated previously, it is doubtful that we would have the opportunity in 22-23 for refundings. However, as you'll see, the theme of this evening is once we have our CCA local in place, these will be things that will be brought back to you on an annual basis. So when we talk about potential refundings, prior to the annual review, our administration in consultation with the financial advisor and bond counsel will perform an analysis of the district's current debt portfolio to identify potential refunding targets. And for a parameters order, consideration, as per our policy, will be given to minimum, thank you, Ms. Prozek, today for pointing out that typo, minimum MPV, net present value savings, maximum true interest costs, maximum par amount, and the maximum final maturity. So Mr. Martin has assisted with identifying all bonds callable between now and August 15th, 2026, so you can really kind of look out there, and when we'll be talking about this when it comes before you next year at this time. And so we established these parameters that are all in line with our proposed policy, and you see them there. And so pending the passage of the revised CCA local parameters order for the 22-23 school year will be brought for consideration at September the 6th. And one thing that I will also say is I will have that order to you. We already have it prepared and can have it for you in a board update this week, so you can look at it prior to.
Thank you. Any questions? Okay, action items. Ms. Maloney?
Yes, the first action item tonight is the discussion and consideration of a resolution committing to the defeasance and/or redemption of certain Lewisville ISD outstanding unlimited tax bonds. This is a good faith measure to the taxpayers. It will be a part of our proposed CCA local that will require the Board of Trustees to review the debt management procedures on an annual basis. As we stated previously, the modest annual surplus is allowing us to be able to defease some of our bonds and will generate savings for our taxpayers. For under the administrative consideration, we have the defeasance program analysis attached again. We state the savings that we've stated 2 or 3 times this evening, and the draft commitment resolution for the Board of Trustees is also here. And so in the spring, in the spring of this school year, when the debt service tax collections have been secured, a consideration of a resolution directing the defeasance and/or redemption of certain LISD outstanding unlimited tax bonds will be brought back as an action item. Tonight, we are just simply making a good faith commitment to the taxpayers for what we're doing with this surplus, at the very least.
Thank you. Would someone like to make a motion? Ms. Sells?
I move to adopt a resolution committing to the defeasance and/or redemption of certain of Lewisville Independent School District's outstanding unlimited tax bonds.
Ms. Hassett, second. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes 7-0. Ms. Maloney?
The next action item this evening is the consideration of the acceptance of the 2022 certified and estimated tax rolls as estimated by Denton Central Appraisal District and certified by Tarrant Appraisal District, and the estimated collection rate for the 22-23 school year. Under the tax code, there is a requirement that chief appraisers are to prepare and certify the property tax appraisal rolls by July 25th. The tax code also requires that the administration submit the certified tax rolls to the Board of Trustees and to provide the estimate of the collection rate. Our board policy CCG legal also does state that if by July 20th the Appraisal Review Board has not approved the appraisal records as required under tax code 41.12, the chief appraiser shall not later than July 25th prepare and certify to the assessor for a local school district an estimate of the taxable value of property in the school district. The Denton Central Appraisal District has submitted an updated estimate as of August the 19th, and they've indicated that their final roll will be available after September the 12th, 2022. Tarrant Appraisal District has submitted a certified roll. The estimated roll from Denton County and the certified roll from Tarrant County are attached for consideration by the Board of Trustees. I do have to point out that the estimated roll was used for building the budget and setting the M&O tax rate, or the MCR, that we take to the Texas Education Agency that has to be turned in August. So I am looking for guidance as to if we will bring back an item for Denton County certified rolls for acceptance once we receive them.
Thank you. Any questions? All right. Do I have a motion? Ms. Hassett?
I move that the board accept the 2022 certified/estimated tax rolls as estimated by Denton Central Appraisal District and certified by Tarrant Appraisal District as acknowledged receipt of the estimated collection rate of 100% of the 2022-23 school year.
A second. Dr. Bonner? Any discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes 7-0. Ms. Maloney?
Yes, thank you, President Miller. The next action item for this evening is the consideration of the adoption of the 22-23 budgets for the General Fund, the Child Nutrition Fund, and the Debt Service Fund. As you know, the General Fund budget incorporates the district's anticipated revenues and appropriations for the 22-23 fiscal year in support of the education of students at an anticipated enrollment level of approximately 49,000 students. The proposed budget does include our salary increases that we spoke about in the hearing, Our recapture payment is also included in this budget at $54.4 million. And it also, this proposed budget provides the possibility of using approximately $9.2 million in our general operating fund balance. The Child Nutrition Fund budget was developed to ensure that we're meeting the required spend-down plan that is required by the Texas Department of Agriculture. And the Debt Service Fund budget anticipates breaking even, which is largely dependent upon the defeasance opportunities available to the district during the next fiscal year. The savings is there for you. We have the tax rates, the interest in sinking tax rate there, and the associated M&O tax rate and INS tax rates will be adopted following the adoption of this budget. I do think that under administrative consideration, I was going to remove this statement, but I've learned that you don't remove that statement just quite yet. So we kept it in there.
Thank you, Ms. Maloney. Any questions? All right, do I have a motion? Ms. Bosnick? Oh, I'm sorry, Dr. Rapp.
Real quickly, I just want to say, first of all, thank you so much to Ms. Maloney and Amber, and I see so many members of Ms. Maloney's team and the finance team that are here this evening, and so I just want to say thank you for all the work that they've all done to get us to the place of not only having the budget to vote on tonight, but all the items that you've been discussing. Thank you all so much. It's been an absolute true joy for this math teacher and now superintendent to get to work on developing a budget for the 22-23 school year, and I just appreciate their work so very much.
Yeah, I would echo that. Thank you, everybody, for all your hard work on this. And board, thanks for all your questions over the last, I think we've been talking about this for 5 or 6 months now, actually. So, and even recently, some of the questions that came in. So thank you for that. With that, do I have a motion? Bosnick?
I move that the board adopt the general fund, child nutrition fund, and debt service fund budgets for the fiscal year ending August 31st, 2023, as presented.
Okay, a second. Ms. Taylor? Thank you. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes 7-0. Ms. Maloney?
Okay, thank you, President Miller. We're considering the approval of the 22-23 maintenance and operations tax rate and the 22-23 interest and sinking debt service tax rate. So these tax rate, the M&O tax rate is recommended to be reduced by about 7 cents from around 92 cents to 85 cents. This rate is capped by law and cannot be exceeded without voter approval. And I remind you again that the TEA sets the MCR based on the data survey that we complete in early August. We are recommending that the INS tax rate stay the same, but we want to emphasize again that the total tax rate is being decreased at about 7 cents. So I want to talk a little bit about the administrative consideration, just to talk about the law that's required for the language in adopting the tax rate. This year's proposed tax rate exceeds the no new revenue tax rate, and we'll talk about that in just a little bit. The vote on the ordinance resolution or order setting the tax rate must be a record vote. And you can see that there's specific language when you adopt the tax rate that we're showing that it's an effective increase of 9.23%. And that's confusing when the tax rate's actually going down, but we're going to talk a little bit about the no new revenue rate and why we have to say that. The statement has to be posted on the homepage of the internet, and we do have it posted. But the following on page 97 does present the 3 tax rates. And what I would draw your attention to is at the 21-22, we have the M&O tax rate, the INS tax rate, and the total tax rate. The no new revenue tax rate is if we collect the same taxes on the same properties from the previous year. So it's comparing, and so it's going to reduce, it's going to be a lower tax rate than this year's tax rate. So that's why when we say effective increase, we're comparing it to a number that's based on last year. So that's about as confusing as it gets, but that's how you break those things down. I do want to say, and I was not the author of this, this has been in this item for many, many years as I looked back, but I like it. State law is silent on any requirement to notify the public that locally collected taxes are required to be paid to the state in recapture payments, and that state funding is decreased to offset the increased tax revenues collected by LISD. We have had our recapture plan approved by the Commissioner of Education. That was back in July or August. We did that. And then so as a part of the recommendation, even though the rate is going down, we have to say that we have an effective increase based on that no new revenue rate. And that's reflected in the ordinance resolution and order that sets this year's tax rate. So we have these statements in the ordinance too, and that have to be in big bold print, that this tax rate will raise more taxes for maintenance and operations than last year's tax rate. And this next statement is, it's so funny because the first part of it, you're using the no new revenue rate for that increase. And in the second part of it, on a straight $100,000 home, if you take this year's tax rate to last year's tax rate, you're paying less money on the same amount of money, on the same dollar amount of a $100,000 home. But we know that a person who had a $100,000 home last year has a much higher value home this year. So think of it in that way. And so I would call your attention to page 100 that kind of goes through that. And I like that worksheet because it makes you see what that no new revenue M&O tax rate would be. And again, when you look at the law, I kind of broke down the timeline. You know, if we were really within the tax code, since we're not going to receive our certified roll until September the 12th, or that's when we are projected to receive it, really under the tax code, we would have until November 11th to adopt our tax rate. But as we know, under the education code, we have to do that right now. So we did use the estimate to build our budget and do our truth and taxation calculations, and that is what we're bringing to you tonight for the tax rate.
Thank you, Ms. Maloney. Any discussion? Do I have a motion? Dr. Bonner?
I move that the property tax rate be increased by the adoption of a tax rate of $1.2368 per $100 of property value, which is effectively a 9.23% increase in the tax rate. I further move that the ordinance fixing and levying school district ad valorem taxes for the school year 2022-23 be approved as presented.
Have a second? Ms. Acid? She pointed to you. Any discussion? With that, before we vote on this, I'm going to read the actual resolution that is referenced here, really just as an exclamation mark on transparency. And Ms. Maloney's kind of given us the summary of that, but I want you to actually hear publicly what we're signing. An ordinance fixing and levying school district ad valorem taxes. Now, therefore, be it ordained by the Board of Trustees of the Lewisville Independent School District that there is hereby levied and ordered to be assessed and collected for the school year 2022-2023 and for each year thereafter until it be otherwise provided and ordained, an ad valorem tax, the rate of $1.2368 shall be levied on each $100 valuation. It is further ordained that, as one of the two components of the tax rate, $0.8559 per $100 is hereby separately approved and levied for the maintenance and operation of the schools within the Lewisville Independent School District, aka the district. This tax rate will raise more taxes for maintenance and operations than last year's tax rate, and the tax rate will effectively be raised by 6.30% and will raise taxes for maintenance and operations on a $100,000 home by approximately less than 71.70 cents. And it is further ordered that, as the other of the two components of the above tax rate, the $38.09 per 100, is hereby separately approved and levied for the purpose of paying principal and interest on debts of the district. Passed, adopted, and ordained by the Board of Trustees at the meeting at which a quorum was present and a majority of the trustees voting for, and which meeting, at which this ordinance, in written form, was before the board at the time of its adoption on the 29th day of August 2020, Lewisville Independent School District, approved by Tracy Scott Miller with attestation from Catherine Sells, Secretary. So with that, is there any discussion? All in favor? Say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes 7-0. Ms. Maloney.
Yes, thank you, President Miller. This next action item is the consideration of approval of final year and 21-22 budget amendments. We do have two this evening. Budget amendment number 4 is adjusting the debt service budget to match actuals for the 21-22 school year, and the final budget aligns with the total collections in the June and August 22 defeasements. Budget amendment number 5 is a new GASB 87 requirement where we have to put some of our things that are under leases in Function 71. We've never had to budget those in Function 71 before, but GASB 87 requires that we do that, and I have to really thank the accounting staff for putting the analysis on that. That was an undertaking for sure. And so those are the two that are before you this evening as final budget amendments.
Thank you. Do I have a motion? Ms. Lasan?
I move that the board approve budget amendments 4 and 5 for the general fund and debt service fund as presented.
Second by Ms. Hassett. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes 7-0. Ms. Maloney, did you talk about this already, or?
A little bit. Okay. A little bit. Thank you, President Miller. And so finally, across the finish line, hopefully this evening, we have the consideration for the adoption of a revised board policy CCA local. So grateful to the board, to the board committee, Dr. Bonner, Ms. Hassett, and Ms. Prosnick for serving as members this summer and getting this in front of the board and editing it and many, many things. Much thanks to John Martin and his team and our bond counsel who have reviewed the policy and provided feedback throughout the process. And so I'll say once again that this local policy is going to serve as our debt management plan and will be reviewed annually at budget adoption. And as a part of that annual review, we will consider our defeasance opportunities. As a part of that annual review, we'll consider a pool of underwriters for the upcoming school year. And finally, as a part of that annual review, we'll consider potential refunding opportunities for the upcoming school year. And so I will say that with approval of this policy this evening, it is a little backwards because we will be bringing those two things to you for action, underwriters and refundings, at September 6th.
Thank you, Ms. Lundy. Do I have a motion? Dr. Bonner?
Yes, Mr. Miller, I move that the board adopt revised board policy CCA local revenue sources, bond issues as presented.
Second, Ms. Hassett. Hope. We'll give that to Ms. Taylor. How's that? Any discussion?
Can I just?
Oh, yeah, go ahead.
I'm just going to say, I really appreciate all the work that went into this. Mr. Martin, I know you were a big part of that. I'm so excited to be raising my, it's so nerdy, but this, I think, will bring a great deal of transparency in what our finances look like going forward for the entire board in the year, and that we will not have duplicate opportunities in short spans, and we won't be flying by the seat of our pants. We have a plan, and I'm excited.
Thank you, Ms. Brunswick. Totally agree. Any other comments? All right. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes 7-0. The next item is actually my item. It's consider endorsement of candidate to TASB Board of Directors. This is position D. We discussed, I think we voted on at the last work session, I can't remember, position A, I believe. The person that applied for that was known to a number of us, and we passed that. Mr. Belmonte's actually had sent me an email. I called him and spoke to him. This is a position that doesn't get position D doesn't get as much attention as position A. But I found him to be very qualified. You have all seen his information, and I would like for us to nominate him or endorse him for this position if you'd be so inclined. So with that said, are there any questions? Want to make a motion? Okay, Ms. Elsa.
I move that the board endorse Mac Belmontes from Lake Worth ISD to the TASB Board of Directors, position D.
Second? Ms. Hassett? All right, any discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? If there's no further business, this meeting is adjourned. The time is 6:50 p.m.